healthy, wealthy, intelligent, if we are those things, if we embody those things, no one can possibly control you. If you have a healthy person, that person's not controllable. They can go out, they can build their business, they are in control of their own bodies, and well, they're sovereign, right?
You're a man living in the modern world in a time when men and manhood are not what they once were. You live life on your own terms. You're self-sufficient. You think for yourself, and you march to the beat of your own drum. When life knocks you down, you get back up, because in your gut, you know that's what men do. You're a badass and a warrior, and on the days when you forget, we are here to remind you who you really are.
Welcome to the Sovereign Man Podcast, where we aim to make men masculine again. I'm your man, Nikki Ballou, and we have a very special guest here today, Dana Dilling of the awesome channel, Dana Disagrees. Welcome to the show, Dana.
Oh, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Good to have you here. So, Dana, why don't you start by telling us a bit about your backstory in life in general, but also specifically as it pertains to you deciding to start your channel and speaking about issues relating to relationships between men and women?
Yeah, I mean, do you have 3 hours? Because that's how long it takes. No, I'll give you the shorter version of it. No, for real. This is one of those things where it's like, this is actually a very big, long, profound story, and it just depends on how much I want to say about it, kind of thing. But actually, I mean, a little bit of background on me. I actually went to school for accounting. I was a CPA. I did taxes, business, and individual for about 10 years. And at some point, I decided that really wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. It was one of those things where it's like, I'm good at this, but I'm not great. And I just can't possibly spend my life doing things where I'm not really truly excelling at what I'm supposed to do in life, right? Mm-hmm. And so I have a very strong passion for natural health, holistic health, and I've had that for quite a while. And so just through some friends of mine and stuff, I actually transitioned to being I call clinical nutritionist. I use diet, herb, supplements, homeopathy as therapy instead of using pharmaceuticals. But while I was a CPA, I decided to start making that career switch. So I started doing some coursework for that and going to some seminars for that. And then I actually kind of dual careered things for 18 months, just as a transition, and then ended up jumping into that full time. Now, when I was about 6 months into full time practicing, I actually got reached out to by Dr. Patrick Flynn. So he is the founder of The Wellness Way. And The Wellness Way is who I partner with, Dana Disagrees, the channel that I made. And what happened there and how that got me to where I am today is he actually wanted to start a podcast. It's called the I Disagree podcast. We don't do it anymore, but it can still be found on YouTube. And so we started doing that. And he brought me on as someone who could talk to the masculine and the feminine side. And honestly, just as someone who was also just willing to talk and not care what other people were saying. And so we started doing that. And then as a part of that, we were like, well, we should create a social media account for me where I can say all the relationship type things that I talk about on the podcast. And so that's how Dana Disagrees itself was born. And I started that, well, it hasn't even been a full 2 years that I started that in June of 23. So the page has grown, the Instagram has grown super rapidly. My TikTok is doing pretty well too. My Facebook is just hitting 10,000 followers over there right now. So that's pretty exciting. But yeah, I'm on all platforms, and that's just kind of how it got started. It was just one of those things that kind of fell into my lap, and then the content was good. So then the views got better and the followers picked up, and now I'm doing this all the time. I still do see clients in practice, again, because I care a lot about helping people with health freedom, right? We want to be financially free. We want to be, we want our health freedom, right? We want to be able to be free individuals because, they, the government, they want you fat, sick, and broke. And so I want people to be healthy, wealthy, and intelligent, because that's how you're truly free, is if you're not controlled by them. So whatever we can do to help people take control of their own lives, whether that's in health, whether that's in finances, or whether that's just understanding men and women and relationships and those kinds of dynamics. Because obviously, as we can all see, the whole masculine, feminine, men and women roles are kind of in shambles right now throughout the world, especially as I can see them inside the United States. But there's this idea of polarity, right? You have masculine on one side and you have feminine on another side. And it's supposed to be like that, right? Because the opposites, like they attract like magnets. That's why the strong masculine man really wants the soft feminine woman. But what's happening in terms of culture now is that everybody's getting too close to center. So when men become more feminine and when women become more masculine, you get too close to center, and then you don't have that polarity, so you can't possibly attract and maintain those passionate, thriving relationships. And so that's something I care just a lot about. I care that men want to be masculine men and that women want to be feminine women. And that's true probably for 80 to 90% of couples that are out there, that's how it works best. That's the rule. And there certainly are exceptions to the rule out there before anybody comes after me for it. But I just want to use my platform to be able to talk about things like that and remind everybody that those kind of like more natural gender roles, that inherent masculine and feminine energy that we have inside of us is an okay thing to let play out in terms of our characteristics, if that makes sense.
Makes 100% sense. I really like a lot of what I'm hearing from you. Let's break it down and let's unpack it. So you're talking a bit about health freedom, and you made a distinction between healthy, wealthy, and intelligent versus fat, sick, and broke. Could you go into a fair bit more detail on that, please?
Yeah. Look, so healthy, wealthy, intelligent. If we are those things, if we embody those things, no one can possibly control you. Because if you have your health, you can get anything, right? Sick people in a hospital bed, they can't go do anything. They're not out making money. They're not out building their body. They're just like paying into the system. And that's just not a way to live. That's not a way that I would like to live. If we have our health, we are in very strong control of our own lives, because the perfect place that the medical system would want you to be would just be sick, right? Because you can't make money on healthy people and you can't make money on dead people. So if you can keep people sick through poor food, poor nutrition, drinking soda, poor air quality, what have you, medications, if you can keep them sick, you can keep making money off them. If you have a healthy person, that person's not controllable. You know, they can go out, they can build their business. They are in control of their own bodies, and well, they're sovereign, right? The same thing goes for wealth. If you are broke, you have to rely on daddy government, and that's not a good place to be, because then you're in control. They can control your vote. But if you have money, then you are able to provide for your family, and then you get the say on what happens in your family. You get the say on what you buy. You get the say more so in what you vote for. Same thing with intelligence. They want you to be dumb. They don't want you to question anything. They don't want you to go down any of the rabbit holes. They want complete control of our brains, because then they can just be the puppet masters that they want to be. And maybe to some people that sounds like a whole tinfoil hat thing. I don't really think it is. I think a lot of people are waking up to that. I think the last 5 years has really shown us a lot of that, and people are a lot more open to being like, wait, if they were doing this and this and this control and this with health, and they were telling us this, and now we're finding out the media lies to us. Well, what's been happening the last several hundred years or the last several thousand years? It's reasonable to think that somewhere somebody probably has always been lying for control, right?
So true. I mean, I study history a fair bit.
Good.
I went to university, and my undergraduate degree was a Bachelor of Commerce in business, in economics, and in political science and history. And then my master's degree, I studied at the University of Toronto, Jordan Peterson's university. And then I went from a master's degree to the United States, to Georgetown University. It's in Washington, D.C. And there I studied in a program called the Master of Science of Foreign Service in the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown. So it was really a lot about history, politics, and in particular, Cold War history. But one of the things that we studied was ancient Rome, ancient Greece, ancient Persia, and the way that Julius Caesar was able to conquer these nations with a relatively small force was he practiced divide and conquer. And if you look at our society, it looks like the powers that be are practicing that. They want us at each other's throats about everything.
They do.
About everything. Yeah, speak more about that.
Yeah, and they're really good at that too. I mean, just look at like the whole racism thing, where it's like, oh, okay, like, is there probably some racism? Like yes, it's always existed, and some of it always will. There will always be stereotypes. Life will not always be fair, but like, for the most part, Black and white people get along, and they're trying to tell us that we actually don't. And it's like, no, like that's not what's actually happening here. You know what I mean? It's crazy. And then they keep perpetuating these ideas of like, okay, so here, get this. Okay, so because you're a white man, it's not okay for you to be proud to be white. But like, it's okay for me to be proud to be a woman. It's okay for a Black person to be proud to be Black. And that's insane, first of all, because you're just born with that. Why would you be proud? That'd be like me saying, I'm proud I have blue eyes. Well, I was born with blue eyes. I didn't do anything to earn that. The things that we should be proud of should be the things that we actually earn. You know what I mean? And so they're trying to get people to be proud of things that we don't even have control over, which doesn't make sense. We don't control the color of our skins. Therefore, it's not something that we really need to be proud of. But then they keep trying to perpetuate these ideas that somehow one race is inferior to the other, when nobody's actually really thinking that. When you go out into the world and you talk to normal people, white and Black people aren't hating each other. We're making fun of each other, because racist jokes are the best, right? Like, they are. They're funny, and that's how you bring people together. I'm super in favor of racist jokes because they're the funniest ones. And when we can laugh about things like that, it brings us together. Did you ever watch like All in the Family, like Archie Bunker?
Sure.
And the George Jefferson and that? Like, there was so much humor in that, and that's what helped bring people together. We need to be able to do those things. I don't know. I think offensive jokes are funny, and I think it helps bring us all together, and that we need to do more of that. But yeah, they're good at the division. And you can look at COVID too, right? If you wore a mask or if you didn't wear a mask, if you were getting vaccinated, and if you were not, they were trying to get you, well, certain sides more than others, were trying to get you to hate the other people and put them in concentration camps, basically.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
100%. Let me break down a bit of what you just said right now. I think those jokes aren't racist. I think they're racial jokes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's no like racist intent behind them. They're just racial jokes, and they're ethnic jokes. And when I was growing up, people would make those types of jokes all the time. Yeah. And there was a series of books that were called Dumb Pollock and Dumb Eye-Tie Jokes, right? And someone gave me 2 of these books, and I read them. And, I thought to myself, if I was like Polish or if I was Italian, would I get upset with these? I mean, maybe a couple of them. But in general, they were pretty funny. And then the guy who wrote the book said, just insert any other ethnic group instead of Polish and Italian over here. The whole point is to let people like poke fun at each other and laugh. And the fact that it's difficult for anybody to even countenance that in this day and age, I think is part of how successful the powers that be had been in dividing us, because there's no question that in 2025, racism ain't a problem. Not the way it was, say, in 1955 or 1925. Right.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I mean, I'll be the first one to say something like, oh yeah, like women drivers are terrible. Asian women drivers are terrible. Like I'll make fun of myself too. And we all have to be able to do that. Like it's funny. We need to bring this kind of humor back. We don't need to be so stuffy all the time.
100%.
In the name of potentially being offensive to someone, right? Yeah. I'm so tired of all that. We've just wussified everybody, men and women for that matter. And we need to undo some of that. We need to like bring back a little bit of bullying. We need to bring back men having fist fights and, stuff like that, where you just duked it out and you were friends and got a beer right afterward. But now that's like, I don't know, a misdemeanor in most states, I think. Not in all of them. A couple of them, I think you can do that again. But you know what I mean? We're wussifying everybody and making everything seem like it's so offensive when, no, I think you just actually lack a sense of humor, and we should probably bring that back.
I agree wholeheartedly. So the other thing I'd like to have you break down for us is this whole concept of masculine versus feminine polarity. You talk about that a lot on the channel. A lot of your videos deal with that as an issue. So break that down for us and talk about some of the things, the shibboleths these days that we really need to slay, because I think they're holding us all back from having great relationships, great sex lives, and frankly, just the kind of society that we're happy to live in.
Yeah, well, the polarity, okay, polarity means like your complementary opposites. So you have masculine men and you have feminine women. And the more feminine you are, the more masculine he needs to be, and then vice versa. And that's what actually attracts each other. We've gotten to this kind of weird place where women think if they're more like men, then men are going to like them. And it's like that's not how that works. Men are attracted to their opposite. Because if you just act like a man, well, then you're just kind of like his buddy. And a man doesn't want another buddy. He wants a woman, right? And that's how we have these, I always just say, thriving, passionate relationships when we can maintain that polarity. Now, men are typically then the leaders of the relationship, and women are typically submissive or deferring to the man. That doesn't mean that he is the only one who ever makes decisions. It doesn't mean that she has to be a doormat. It doesn't mean those kinds of things. But when you have a successful relationship, somebody needs to be leading and somebody needs to be going along with it. And sometimes you might flip, who that is every now and then, but it tends to be the man, because one of the characteristics of the masculine is actually decisiveness. Yeah. And men, it doesn't mean that women can't make good decisions or decisions at all, but men tend to be able to process more information and do it a little bit more quickly. And they make decisions based a little bit more on facts and logic. Of course, emotion plays into all of us because, we're human, but women base more of their decisions on emotion. And that's not necessarily bad, because often that can serve a woman in what she needs to make decisions for. But in terms of like running a company or a society, we have to run that in a very masculine way. We need to be competitive. We need to be aggressive. We need to, one of the traits of the masculine is a little bit more of that, independence and being able to think and process more on your own. Versus on the feminine side, that's more like the nurturing and the compassionate and using more like intuition and basing more things on some feelings. You can't run a company like that. You'll get crushed. It doesn't make sense. You can't run society like that. You can run the home like that, and that's fine. But a lot of these feminine characteristics are being brought to the workplace. And cool, you can have like 20% of your workplace be feminine. That's fine, right? You have your culture events, your get-togethers, fun stuff that happens. But largely, you need to be masculine. Otherwise, your company's not going to thrive. It's going to fail. But what I tell people in terms of, that's kind of like more the macro scale, right? Yeah. When you look at it a little bit more micro, okay, what about an individual person? What does that look like for the man, and what does that look like for the women? What kind of like traits do we need to be looking at? I break it down to the 3 M's for men, and it's the 3 S's for women. So men need to have their 3 M's together. They need mind, muscle, and money. Okay, mindset, understanding who you are, understanding where you're going, right? Just having a good mindset, right? Positive. And then muscle means, being fit, taking care of your body, being in shape. Okay. Because again, we don't want to be fat, sick, and broke. We need to be healthy, wealthy, and intelligent. And then mind, muscle, and then money, because women, now don't take this in a shallow way or anything, because it's not, but a man is naturally a provider for his woman and for his family. And part of what women want is some kind of safety and security. Now, that's physical and emotional for sure, but she also wants to know that she'll be provided for. And so money is important for the man, because that's how you provide for your household. And men, that's so natural for men. And I feel like I think it's because is it because it's money that somehow that became too taboo to talk about? I don't know. I think we should be openly talking about money a whole lot more than what we do, because again, the powers that be, they don't want you to have it. They don't want you to understand how it works. So then you don't have it. So you have to rely on them. But it's important for men to have their 3 M's. They need to have mind, muscle, and money. If they can have those 3 things, they can have their pick of women, and they're doing well in the world. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%.
So that's the man side. And I just created a community on School. It's called the 3M community. I have over 500 men in there right now, actually. Wow. And I have a course inside of there about like how to win. And inside of how to win, we talk about, okay, well, why are men feeling lost in terms of their purpose in life. And then we also talk about mind, muscle, and money. And then we talk about how to lead a woman, how to attract a woman, how to be sexually appealing to a woman, how to choose the right woman, because that's super important, right? For a man, it's important for a woman to have the right man too, but it's really important for a man because there are three main things that are going to derail men, and it's drugs, alcohol, and it's women. So you need to make sure you choose the right one, because if you choose the right one, that could cost you millions in your life, because what if she doesn't support your purpose and your vision? What if she's combative? What if she's nitpicky? What if she just tries to be your mom instead of your woman? Those aren't things that you would want in a woman. No. So we take the time to go through inside of that course, just breaking down the 3 M's, mind, muscle, and money, but then also going through women in relationships. And again, that's in the 3M men community that I created on school. So men are 3 M's, right? So I just went through that. But then we need to know the flip side, right? Women, they need to have their 3 S's. Women need to be sexy, supportive, and serene. So sexy, because looks do matter. We do need to be visually appealing. Men are very visual, so it's important that a woman is putting effort into how she looks. This does not necessarily mean that she will look perfect all of the time, or maybe she's overweight right now and she's working to lose weight. Men are happy if you are putting effort into how you look. It doesn't necessarily need to be perfection, but we can all do our hair. We can all dress for our body and wear clothes that are visually appealing. We can, do makeup that highlights our facial features. I love that I have blue eyes, so I try to highlight those as often as I can. So sexy, right? And I go into nutrition with them. Your fitness level is important there. It's not always just about, the body. It's also about, it's also just how you present yourself, and also the confidence that you have within yourself because of how you carry yourself. That's very attractive to men. So that's sexy. And then there's supportive, which almost doesn't even need a definition. We know what supportive is, but that's probably, it depends on the man, but arguably the most important of the S's, because if you don't have a supportive woman, how are you possibly going to get anything done or accomplished in your life? If she's fighting you to be home at a certain time, if she's being picky about the gifts that you give her, if she just really doesn't support or see the vision that you have, how are you supposed to possibly build it and build that life for the both of you? And I think the younger man, right, the teens and maybe the early 20s, they put more emphasis on the sexy, because looks and, being visually appealing, that's super, super important. But more often than not, once you kind of get just a little bit older, men start to realize that, you know what, like I would rather sacrifice some sexy points and I would rather get some more supportive points. Because oftentimes if you have a woman who's a 10 in terms of looks, lots of times she may only be like a 3 or 4 for like supportive and serene, which I'll get into in a second, right? And a lot of men would actually be like, yeah, you know what, I would rather have a 6 and a 6 in terms of looks and a 10 in terms of supportive, because that's going to end up serving me better. And other men will think you did well if you have a supportive woman, right? They don't even need, when men get together and talk and they're talking about their wives, if men haven't even met the other guy's wife, they'll already think he did well if in the way that he speaks about her, they can tell that she's really supportive of him, right? And then there's serene. Serene is like peaceful and tranquil. Men go to war all day long. When you go out into the world and you go to work, you're at war all day long. The last thing you want to do is come home and have another war. Mm-hmm. When you come home, your house should be nurturing and calming. That's how your woman's presence should be. If she's, again, I use the word combative a lot. If she's arguing with you about everything, if she's combative about everything, that's not peaceful to a man. That's going to be hard for him to relax when he goes home. That would be a hard person to feel safe around, even, because he probably feels like he's walking on eggshells. Men don't want to feel like that when they come home. So men have their 3 M's, they have mind, muscle, and money. And then women have 3 S's. They are sexy, supportive, and serene. And when you put those together, we get our polarity, we get our complementary opposites that can ultimately attract each other.
I really like your 3 M's and your 3 S's. I like the alliterative nature of how you put these together.
Yeah.
Like what I do for a living is I help entrepreneurs in particular, like folks who are experts, become coaches, become not coaches, become thought leaders, become seen as the go-to expert in their space. And I look for what they do. That's one of the reasons I'd like to have you on my other podcast. It's called the Thought Leader Revolution, because I think you've done a lot of these really, really well. You have really good IP, intellectual property. You've thought through your issues really well. You've come up with catchy, hooky ways of saying what you have to say. I really like it. I think it's excellent. It's fantastic. And I look at what you're doing. Okay, so in Sovereign Man, we talk about the pillars of sovereignty for a man, right? So one of them is he's got to be physically sovereign. So he's got to be strong. He's got to be able to play with his kids. You know what I mean? He's got to look good. All that's super important. The other one is he's got to be intellectually sovereign. That means he should think for himself. If he's letting the government tell him what to do, this especially became true during the lockdown era of the scamdemic, right? He's toast. It's not good for him not to be intellectually sovereign. You got to think for yourself, and you got to think independently. Then we say, well, you need to be emotionally sovereign. That means that you can't be a basket case around your woman. If she's not with you or she wants to leave you, you can't just like fall apart. Like, yeah, you want her. Sure. If she's mad at you or she doesn't want to be with you or she leaves you, it's going to hurt you. That's all good. But you shouldn't lose your emotional shit, as it were. Right. And then fourthly, we say you have to be financially sovereign. Money, as you put it, right? You got to take care of your money. You got to take care of business. Big part of what a man has to do. And then finally, you need to be spiritually sovereign. That means you got to have a powerful relationship with your creator and your mentor. So those are some of our principles of sovereignty. Your 3 M's are very powerful. And I think our men are really good.
Yeah, you're doing them too. You're just not calling them the 3 M's. You're just using the word sovereign in there. You're doing the exact same thing.
No, but it's really good. I really like the way that you've created this. Now, what I found with men, especially, younger men who were brought up in the post-feminist era, right, is a lot of them don't understand these things. A lot of them, unfortunately, have been indoctrinated into feminizing themselves. And this whole world of men, as you say, moving more toward the center rather than toward the masculine pole is a big problem. What do you think we as a society and people like you, people like me need to do in order to get these younger men and even millennial type men in their kind of late 30s to late 40s to understand what it means to be masculine and to not allow themselves to be pulled closer to the feminization side of things? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing, we need to just get them to understand that they're being lied to, and for men, that they're being lied to about what women want. Men now have gotten to this place of thinking that, well, if I act like a woman, if I do the girly things with her, that's attractive to her. It's not. If I just agree with her and, never tell her she's wrong, if I don't have any boundaries and I let her do whatever she wants, she'll be attracted to me. She'll like that about me. And that's completely wrong. That idea has been put out there by, I think kind of two things. I mean, there is this movement of feminism, right, where the future is female. And I'm like, I hope not, because we're probably doomed. We'll be annihilated in 30 seconds if women start running everything. But I digress from that. So we kind of know that that's been playing in just that message of women and being in charge and being equal to men, which is completely we're not equal. And that is the point. Equal in dignity. Sure. But we are not equal. That is the point. Men do their things, women do their things. Again, polarity, we're meant to be complementary opposites. But also, if we can take a second, I think the whole, there's been a lot of single moms out there, and I'm not going to rag on any of them or anything because I understand everybody's situation is different. However, if we look at boys being raised by single moms, that's also been contributing to part of the issues that we have today. Because when you look at that mom and that boy, think about what that relationship is. If the boy listens to the mom complain about men, then he's gonna, grow up and think that he should also complain about men. He should act more like women. If he, or just be more emotional and just, be listening, right? If he just obeys whatever his mom says, which is what a child is supposed to do. If he just does that growing up, he's getting into this thought paradigm, well, I just have to listen to the woman and do whatever she says to do. There's this disconnect. My point is that there's disconnect of whatever the boy does for the mom, he thinks that he can do that with a woman and that will be attractive. And it's not. It's completely different because women don't want that in a relationship. Women are responsible though too. Okay. So men, yes, you need to be decisive and step up your leadership and act like a real man, of course. But there's a woman's side to this too, because we keep telling men that we want some kind of nice guy. Like, no, we don't. Women don't actually want that. But women don't even really know what they want, but they keep thinking that they want this nice guy, but they don't. That guy just get friend zoned. He's not the one that the women actually want to sleep with. The women are drawn to that like strong alpha male for a reason. And it may be lust, but primally that's the guy who's bigger and stronger and tougher and can protect me. That's just like primal biological instincts, whether we are conscious of them or not. There's a reason that the woman maybe says she wants the nice guy, but she's going to actually go sleep with the bad boy, right? Because it's attractive. It's primal inside of us. And so women need to also recognize that, like, no, let's stop like rewarding the nice guy behavior. We don't want to be doing that anymore. But then we also need to stop doing all this man bashing. Okay. It'll probably naturally stop once, men reclaim their masculinity and their masculine role, but women need to also do their part and will stop putting the man down. Stop relentlessly and brutally teasing him. He doesn't like that. Teasing is torture. Let his friends do that for him. So there's kind of like both sides to this. The men need to understand that, well, feminism is garbage. Women need to understand that too. But that what they're being taught about how relationships work is ultimately not true. Women want someone who will tell them no every now and then and put some kind of boundary up. Believe it or not, we actually want to be told no, because otherwise we'll test you, right? Now there's a difference between just like a shit test of a man that's not very respectful and a different kind of like more respectful test, because women are made to test men. Okay. We're meant to just kind of drive you guys crazy a little bit, but in a good and feminine way, right? The bad kind of testing would be like, okay, if you told me that we were going to go to dinner at whatever restaurant tonight, and I was like, we always go there. We just went there last week. Can't you possibly pick something else? Okay. That's a bad, that's disrespectful. That's a bad way of like testing a man to see if he'll change his mind on the restaurant. A more respectful way would be like, if you said, we're going to go to whatever restaurant. And if she responds like, ooh, like, I'm so glad that we get to go out tonight, but we actually went there last week. Do you think that we could go to this other place instead? That's also a form of testing. Will you change your mind to do the thing that she wants? But that is a respectful way of doing it. Does that kind of make sense? I normally use the restaurant example because the thing is the man does want to do what makes the woman happy, but not when she's reacting in a disrespectful way. But that's a little bit of a side tangent. But to kind of bring it back, we need to, the young men need to understand what women really want. And we do want a leader. We do want someone who has a clear vision and path of where they're going, not someone who's just wishy-washy. We want someone who can make good, solid decisions. And that's the big decisions about where we're going in life, where we're going to live, career paths and things like that. But it's also the small decisions of when she comes to you with 2 different dresses and asks you which one you like, you should tell her. You should never say, oh, I don't care, pick whatever. Okay. She's going to pick whatever no matter what, but you should tell her, oh, I like the black one more. And it doesn't matter if she ends up picking it or not, but decisiveness from a man, that's a gift to a woman. We're not made to handle as many decisions as you guys are. And so it's just a gift if we can turn our brains off and let men make decisions. I love being able to do that. I love when I can just turn my brain off and be like, I don't have to worry about where we're driving. I don't need to worry about where we're going to eat. There's a bunch of men in the room right now, therefore I don't have to worry about my safety. We love being able to do that. And so, yeah, the strong masculine leaders are what women are really looking for. We're not looking for someone to be our best friend. and to just sit and be chatty and talk to us. We have our girlfriends for that.
Amen.
And for some reason, we're starting to expect men to do that. I think part of it might be because back in, the tribal days, women would be in community and be in groups all day. They raised their kids all together and they had help from each other and from older women, right? All the women did that in community. We don't do that anymore. No wonder it's so hard to be a stay-at-home mom now. I mean, it always has been, but no wonder it's so hard now. You're all by yourself. You're not really in community anymore.
Yeah.
And so now I think just the nature of how we have our own houses and separate and go to work and all these things, women don't have that same community. So they expect their man to be their best friend and be chatty with them. But you don't want to have sex with your best friend, right?
No.
You want to have sex with a man. That's what women actually want. And a man will be decisive. He will lead the household. He's going to tell her no if he needs to, and he's going to make the decisions. So.
Amen. No, that's really good. I'll tell you a bit about my story. I was married. I have two sons with my former wife. But I made a decision that I was going to be very, very involved with my two sons. So we had 50-50 custody. We got them involved in sports. They ended up doing karate and then soccer and hockey. I mean, being in Canada, hockey's a big thing over here.
Yeah.
I know in Wisconsin you guys play hockey too because it's cold state.
There's some of that goes on.
Yeah.
It's more football. I live pretty close to the Packers stadium, actually.
Oh, do you? Okay.
So it's a big football town here. Yeah,
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is.
But anyway, yeah.
But so like my sons, one of them's now 19, the other one is 17. So the 19-year-old finished high school last year when he was 18, and he was supposed to go to university, and he picked out his school, and then he got a job in the summer. And he got a job working for the company, the man who I hired to help get me into shape back in February 2023. So I was 58 pounds overweight at that time. I was 227. I dropped down to 169 with these guys' help and brought my sons to do some training with them and whatnot. So my older boy started working with him. A month in, guy offers him full-time job. Come work with me full-time, be here full-time. He's 18 at the time. And he comes to me, he says, Dad, will you be angry with me if I don't go to school, if I just work full-time? And he proceeded to pitch me. He said, look, you don't have to pay for school because if I go to school, it's going to cost you $30,000 a year. And then on top of that, I don't think I'm going to learn as much. I've been talking to people here who did what I did in school, what I wanted to do in school, which was kinesiology. He said, I think I'll learn more on the job, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, long story short, I said, look, if that's what you want to do, go for it. We can revisit it in a year. So this kid's 19. He works 7 days a week. And he does in-person and online coaching clients in the gym. So
cool.
Monday through Friday, he's up at 4 a.m. because he's got 5 a.m. clients. He works 14 to 16 hours Monday through Friday, and he only works 10 to 12 hours on Saturdays and Sundays. He doesn't go out drinking, messing around. He is super popular with women, so he has a bunch of girlfriends.
Yeah, because they see the potential there because he's getting his 3 M's. We gotta, honestly, for the younger men too, we gotta bring back you probably should be working like 12 hours a day at that time when you have that kind of energy and you don't have a woman and you don't have a family to provide for. Just go get it. Especially because if he does this now, the women he could get now, just think about 10 years from now. If he keeps doing what he's doing, how incredibly successful he'll be in 5 to 10 years, and he'll have even better pick of the women.
He totally will. But listen, this kid, since he was 15 years old, has had girls throwing themselves at him. He's uber. He's uber alpha, like way more alpha than I've ever been in my life. It's crazy. He's making money. He contributes. He's staying with his mom more because her house is closer to where he works. He used to be always with me because he'd come and tell me. He said, "Yeah, you're easier to deal with than mom." I go, "Yeah, because I'm your father, but I'm also going to kick your ass." And I did. He was captain of his soccer team. He was good enough to be considered by his coach to say, I think you can go pro, although he decided eventually not to go after that. And My other kid's 17, but he plays soccer and hockey at the same time. He's not as together as his older brother is yet, but I think he's going to get there. And I look at this and I go, well, why are my sons doing so well? Why are they both popular with women? Why is their life going well? Are they doing well at school? Well, I go, because I'm their dad, and I'm an old school masculine man. I don't let them get away with anything, and I modeled how to be a man for them. And there's other dudes that I know who have kids that are 10 years older than my boys, who are way less of a man than my 17-year-old is, which is crazy to me. That's the world that we unfortunately live in. So
yeah, the strong father figure is super, super important. So I guess I said the single mom thing before. One other thing that we should be telling young men is, if you don't have a dad, or if you don't have the strong masculine dad, like you need to find one. And that doesn't mean that you have a bad dad. It just means you need that kind of mentor somewhere in your life.
I 1000% agree. 1000% agree. So, and this is a good thing for us to segue into, and what to say to women. And I think what you have to say to women isn't just for younger women, it's for all women right now, because unfortunately too many women have been infected by this feminazi virus, and they think that, being supportive of a man is wrong. And they think that clashing and fighting with a man is right. So, I've got a wonderful woman in my life. She's super sexy. I mean, if you've seen my picture on Instagram, that gorgeous blonde next to me on my Instagram, that's my woman. She's very supportive. She's not always serene. That's the one area we got to work on her, because
we'll work on that.
Because the feminazi ethos, has infected her thinking. There's parts of her that go, men shouldn't tell me what to do. Men shouldn't lead me all the time. And she wants to be led, and she doesn't. And it's one of those things that I think all women need to hear about. So if maybe you can break down your 3 S's for the women a little bit, because we do have a bunch of women that listen to the show as well.
Yeah. So 3 S's: sexy, supportive, and serene. Again, I kind of mentioned it before, but arguably the most important one, they're all important, but arguably the most important one is supportive, and being able to support your man's purpose in life. Because if you can do that, if he has someone who is in the boat, rowing the boat with him, that will just help elevate him so much, and elevate his status around his friends. When men get together, they do talk about women. And if you as a woman if you don't respect your man, or if you talk down to him, especially in public, other men see that, and then they will respect that man less, because, well, his woman doesn't even respect him. So like, why would I? And then probably the worst thing that can happen is sometimes other men will take pity on that guy because, well, his woman talks, and no man wants the pity of another man. So women need to be so careful that we are speaking respectfully at all times, especially in public, about our men. But then also, 3 S's: sexy, supportive, and serene. So we're being serene when he's at home. It's that calmness, that peacefulness, that tranquilness. The sexy meaning that, again, you're putting effort into your appearance. Okay. It's okay if you are a little overweight right now, as long as you are still working to get to where you need to be. He will be thrilled that you are working to get to where you need to be. And I think one thing that's interesting with women is that, okay, I cannot remember where I read this. But back would have been World War II. All the men left, right? Because it was the war, and a lot of women needed to go to work at the time. Okay. And when those women went to work, it made them feel very important, because they were doing jobs that were contributing to something in society, but then also to the war and to the men to help the country out. Right. And that has a big sense of importance, that you are contributing to something like that. Well, when the men came home, they just thought everything would go back to normal, and that the women would go back home and take care of the house and the kids, and that they would just be able to go back to work. Well, when you feel important, you don't want to give up feeling important. So a lot of women didn't want to go back home. They wanted to keep those positions. So now these men are coming home, and it's like, wait, now I have to fight for a job maybe more than what I had to before, or now there's a lot more women in the workplace. And again, that's not to say that women can't work, but you get the picture that I'm painting here. And they're not going home as much, and now they're competing for jobs, and now they're competing against men, and it just kind of like started throwing off the dynamic a little bit to now we're like, well, it's super common for women to work all the time versus 100 years ago they would have thought we were insane for working as much as we do. And so when I like to tell that story sometimes just to kind of paint the picture of like, hey, it's okay to actually give up some of that kind of control. It is a blessing. It is a blessing if your man can provide for your home and that you don't have to work. You can go do it if you want to. Clearly I do, right? I still do something. But I'm blessed that if I did absolutely nothing, we wouldn't lose our home. All of our bills would be paid. My husband has a really great job. And so the point of what I want to say there is just it is okay to submit to a man. We don't like that word either because women think that submit means the same thing as obey. And like it doesn't. Submit just means to defer to his judgment. And the thing is you're probably not even going to clash on it that many times. You're probably going to talk it out. You're probably going to understand each other. You probably don't need to, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it, you probably don't need to like not get your way only a handful of times in a year or a decade or something like that. And when we defer to men, well, first of all, it takes that decision load off of our brains, which is a blessing. I promise it is. It's a blessing to be able to turn your brain off. But we need to also remember that when men are leading and making decisions, if something goes wrong, it's on them to figure that out. It's not nearly as much on us because they're the ones with the authority. And so then they have more responsibility that comes along with it. And so if something goes wrong, trust me, it's coming down 10 times harder on him than it's coming down on you. Because he's the one who has to deal with all of the consequences. You probably don't need to deal with them nearly as much. And so 3 S's, sexy, supportive, and serene. So I have that 3M men community I was talking about on school. I also have a women's community on school. It's called Radiate. And inside of there, we talk about being sexy, supportive, and serene. I do coaching calls inside of there. We have community and posts, and we're, learning things about relationships. But that's women who are looking to, be able to lead their life with that strength and confidence. There's that masculine side, but you need to maintain your softness, right? And just bringing a lot of that back because we're so conditioned now that women are the same as men and that we can do all the things that men do. And well, sure we can. And that's cool, but like, we don't have to. Well, I don't want to. I don't want to have to do all. I don't want the responsibility, the main responsibility of finances for my house. I don't want to think about the stupid sump pump and when it's going to go out and when it needs to be changed. I don't want to think about if I need new tires on my car, which I need right now. That's why I'm thinking about that right now because my husband was the one who noticed it. I would have been oblivious until I took it in for an oil change, and a man there probably would have told me because I have no idea when any of that kind of stuff is, and I don't want to know. It's a blessing for men to be able to take care of women, honestly, and women need to get back to remembering that and receiving that. Right? Generosity is a characteristic of the masculine. Men love to give. They love being able to provide for others, not only their woman, but their kids, their family, other friends, extended families. Men love to be able to give, and it's gifts that they love to give us, right? I'm not talking about necessarily flowers, although that can be, but decisiveness is a gift. I always talk about that one. Men are generous. They love to give. Women, the complementary characteristic of that is receiving. Women need to be able to receive those gifts. Women have a hard time doing that because we feel like we didn't earn it. And I always say, well, of course you didn't earn it. It's a gift. If you earned it, it would be called compensation, but it's not. It's a gift. And he wants to give you a gift. You need to be able to receive that gift and be grateful for that gift. If you think about Christmas, if you give someone a really awesome gift and they say, oh, no, I don't want it. How does that feel? That's weird. That doesn't feel right. It's the same thing with men and women. When he's giving you a gift of his time, his talents, his energy, his money, receive that gift. It makes him feel good, and it makes you feel good to be provided for in that way. Yeah.
Dana Dilling, you are an absolute treasure. You're a national treasure. And
No, thank you.
I think the world is lucky to have a woman like you speaking common sense to women and, frankly, to young men.
Yeah.
Because Jordan Peterson said that there's so many men that are being actively discouraged by society and the world. And that's one of the reasons he started to do what he did, is he wanted to encourage those men. And I think you encourage men with the content that you put out in your channel. You make men feel like they matter, and every man wants to matter. I mean, the number one thing that drives me in life is I want to have lived a life that mattered.
Purpose. That's so important. Especially, it's important for everybody, but it's especially important for men that they are living in their life's purpose and that they are pushing as hard as they can to get there. That's how men thrive.
That's how men thrive, 100%. And you're one of those people out there who actually actively encourages men. And to see a woman do that, and a younger woman like yourself do that, I just think that's a wonderful thing. Keep doing what you're doing. We'll put all the information about you and your channel and your school communities in the show notes.
Yeah. Perfect.
Please come on my business podcast, because I'd love to have a more business oriented conversation with you as well.
Yeah.
And if there's anything I can do to be of service to you, please let me know. Thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. And you as well. I'm glad I get to be able to speak to your audience. It's been fun. I can talk about this kind of stuff endlessly. And it's so important for people to be hearing this kind of information and really just getting that confirmation, that validation of the way that I feel and the way that I want to naturally act is correct and is okay. And just that reinforcement of, no, you're actually being fed lies out there. We need to rein it in and remember who we truly are.
Amen. Well said. And that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to the Sovereign Man Podcast. If you're ready to take charge of your life and become the man you've always wanted to be, we invite you to join the movement at sovereignman.ca.